can we do? We can keep visualizing what we want and sit tight. It's happening, kids.
It is happening, and you know, I just keep saying we can co-create. Imagine the future that you want,
Right.
and we will create it. And you don't have to use violence. You don't have to demonstrate. Although perhaps that's how people do it who don't have the abilities or understanding of consciousness.
Right.
So they're still fighting and standing up for humanity.
Yeah.
They're doing it for their future generations.
Yeah.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hello and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. As always, wonderful to be with you all again. And please remember, if you're liking the shows, to subscribe and press that bell button if you're on YouTube, and share the shows with your friends. I've got the wonderful and amazing Kevin Briggs back on the show with me today. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi, Karen. It's a pleasure to be back on your show, and I do enjoy chatting. It's a while since we've chatted, I think. I came onto one of your meetings, and there was another speaker I was wanting to listen to, but unfortunately she didn't turn up. So we had a bit of a chat then, but I'd like to thank you for having me on your show, because it gives me that platform to talk about my experiences, and that's what my guides have asked me to do. So thank you for inviting me back, Karen.
I know. When did I find you? How long ago? It's been over a year, hasn't it? Or has it been two? Me and time. I can't.
I think it's been over a year. Yes.
It's been a while, and you were just starting. Really, you'd only been about for the last 6 months or maybe a year, starting to put yourself out there after you've written your book, and since then you've been super busy, right?
I'm super busy now. Yeah. In fact, I have to pick and choose what I do now, because it's. There's so many Zooms I attend on, I asked to attend on, and then I'm still learning myself, Karen. So I'm going to different conferences and things, and learning from others who've got a lot of experience as well. But what I am finding, which is very interesting, I'm finding that all those people that have been educated in the different areas, like say the religious area or the spiritual area or the ETs or the UFO area, I've got all that information as well, although it's been given to me in a different format. But if we touch on a conference, I went to a virtual conference last week sometime, and that really epitomized it, because they brought all these different people together, some people who studied theology, experts in the area, and just amazing how it's all really coming together. But each time I learn something new,
it's all one subject, isn't it?
It is. It's all one subject.
Afterlife, spirituality, UFOs, ETs, channeling, psychic ability, all these different compartments, NDEs that we compartmentalize, and different shows have like focuses on different things. I think it's all one subject, hence my shows focus on all of it. But I haven't really introduced you to people that haven't met you before. I'm sure many of you have. Yeah, Kevin was just saying, in my inner sanctum groups, I do a weekly online session where I teach, and once a month I invite a guest teacher. I'd invited somebody, and I invited Kevin in to meet her, and because they have the same plan really for disclosure, and she didn't turn up, but she turned up the next week. So Kevin actually took over as I'm trying furiously to find her. Where are you? Where are you? I just said, talk, Kevin, talk. And Kevin did all the talking. It was fabulous. But for people who don't know about Kevin J Briggs is an author and specialises in consciousness and the connection to ETs and UFOs. He's recently published his book titled Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey, and covers 56 years of his experience, or I suppose it's covering, the book covers 56 years of your experience with ET contact and UFO connections. He has had open physical contact with his ET guides since he was 8 years old. who say they are from Arcturus, from the Arcturus planetary system in the Andromeda galaxy, as well as other ETs from other star systems. He's connected to a galactic council of 8 beings who are overseeing the planetary shift on planet Earth at this time. So as we talk about this, we talk about your council of 8 beings. A lot of people feel confused because other people talk about other councils and they say, hang on, how can there be so many councils? But what my guides say to me is, like your Earth, you have many councils that oversee different areas of your planet. And same with the galactics, they have different councils who have different jobs to do, if you like, different jobs with planet Earth. Do you know what? Yeah, silly question. Okay, so the job of your council is to inspire you and others to help to reveal the connection with our star nation brothers and sisters, right?
That's correct. Yes, that's really my mission, is to speak about my lifelong interactions with them, and then to what they call the reveal, which is when they reveal themselves physically to us. And obviously, I've had the many modalities of contact that they use, like dream telepathy, downloads, OBEs, physical materializations, even. You know, so I've had all those contacts. I can talk about many of them, but we just spoke there earlier that they're all connected. Even the afterlife and the different levels of consciousness. And that's the key that they've taught me over the years, is one of consciousness, shared consciousness. And once we learn that, then we will treat one another differently, because we realize that we're not only all connected on this planet, we're connected throughout the galaxy and we are higher conscious beings ourselves, having a physical. And when we learn this and share this, it puts our life into a whole different perspective. So and then, as I say, the main objective now is to help facilitate what they call the reveal. And they've now told me that they asked me a couple of years ago to contact our governments in relation to that. And I did at highest levels of our government. And I got pushed back quite a bit, as you can understand. And then finally, they just ignored me, which is understandable. So, but they were given the opportunity. You know, the Council of 8 asked me to do that, so I did that. I wrote and I emailed and I had interactions with the high levels of government. But at the end, obviously, they didn't really want to talk about it. So they just acknowledged my email and correspondence by an automated response to say they'd received it. So at least I know they received it. But now, what my ET guides are telling me now, we need to change direction. So the reveal will come from the citizens of Earth, and we will learn to communicate with them, as I do, and they're here to help with the evolution of our species. And they're really concerned about the planet as well, because, you know, they share our planet. They are here. They are around. We just don't see them because of their technologies. So it's really just moving forward in the same direction, rather than leaving our governments behind. It will now come from the people. And I'm meeting other people on my journey that are working towards the same goal. So it's just fascinating that everybody seems to be coming together now.
Oh, absolutely. That's what we've got to do. We've got to come together. And, you know, we had one conversation on the show about disclosure, you know, and they gave you a date and you went off to New York City and all that sort of thing, and it didn't really happen. But as I'm thinking about it, it did create interest, and that's what they want. They want people to tune in to this subject. So when somebody says, right, the ETs are going to land and they're going to talk to the governments, everyone pricks up their ears and says, really? But yeah, go on.
Well, that's quite true, Karen. That's very true, is that. And obviously I take a leap of faith when they ask me to do something, to do that and to say that and put yourself out there. It takes some responsibility to do that, and you put your credibility on the line. They didn't turn up, and as we all know now, but what they did say, they would continue to contact more individuals, and there will be more and more mass sightings globally. And that's what's happening. And now they've changed direction again in relation to this, obviously wanted the mandate protocol, but implemented now by citizens of the Earth. So we, the people, will be the disclosure. And I'll say the people I'm meeting now from when I first started speaking out about it, I realized that my journey is continuing. And but there's so many others on the same journey. And we're all coming together now with that small piece of information, that small piece of the jigsaw. So I'm very excited for the future. And they also tell me that we're moving towards the golden years for humanity. And but before that, there will be a collapse of our societies and huge change, a huge shift in consciousness. And that's happening now. But they said the golden years for humanity would be would include the release of our own technologies that are kept hidden from us at the moment, and then there will be new shared ET technologies to run alongside with that, and then obviously the reveal itself, and it will change our planet. It will change who we are as a species, and I'm still learning now, and I think I mentioned this on probably on your last show. I wouldn't have spoken out about it if they had not asked me to. I just felt quite privileged that I've got all this information, and it certainly makes for a happier life if you have this information and you have the connection to the ETs, the higher levels of consciousness, and nature itself. And I know someone asked me the other day if I was going to be am I a teacher? And I said, well, I don't really want to be a teacher. I don't think I am. But I think just talking about my experiences, I'm conveying the information. So perhaps that's part of my remit as well, maybe to teach, or just to tell my story. But I can give you a quick, I don't think I mentioned last time, because it hadn't happened then. I was speaking with my brother, and he's retired in Spain now, and he lives overlooking the Mediterranean. It's got a beautiful view, and I speak to him regularly on Zoom or on the phone. And he was sat out on his balcony, and he said, "Oh, Kevin, there's some beautiful butterflies here. They're huge, and they keep flying past." I said, "Well, why don't you ask them to come and land on your hand?" And he said, "Well, they won't do that. He's a retired aircraft engineer, so he's a nuts and bolts type of guy. He knows about my contact all my life and my abilities." So I said, "Well, why don't you ask them?" I said, "You'll need a reason to ask. So why don't you say that, can you come and land on my hand, because I want to look at the beautiful colours on your wings?" So he indulged me, and he held his hand out, and the butterfly flew past. He went out of sight, turned around, came back, and landed on his fingers. And I said, "Right, okay then." So he's getting into this now. And then I said, "Right, well, ask it to go away now and come back with a mate. But you need a reason, because you want to compare the colours on the wings of a friend of his." So the butterfly takes off, it goes out of sight, turns around, comes back with a friend. The original butterfly lands on his fingers, tips, and the second one lands on his forehead. So he's having this conversation with butterflies. So, and now he does it all the time. In fact, he's now got them landed on his wife, and it's opened up his whole concept of who we are, opened up to connection of nature. And he just thought I was being a bit, well, he knows my ideas and things and my experiences. But for him to try it out, it to work, and now he does it on his own. In fact, last week he sent me a photograph of several butterflies all landing on him, so just amazing, really.
That amazes me that you say that, Kevin, because your experiences, for people that haven't heard your story, so at 8 years old, was it at 8 when the Ort and Dee, who were the Arcturian from the Andromedan galaxy, turned up, hovering?
That's right, yes.
Hovering above the floor, sort of in human physical form, while you're in the bath, freak you out, and had a bit of a chat about you. And then, so yeah, you've had many incredible experiences. And he knows about all of them. What does he think about them? Like now that he's had butterflies land on him, now he goes, "Oh my God, this stuff is real." But he's been listening to you talk about your experiences your whole life. Was he thinking that you just had an amazing imagination? I mean,
no, I think he obviously didn't understand them, but I think now he does. He's now opened up. He's opened up his mind to the other realms, to other possibilities. He's reading about it. And he's practicing things that I talk about him and to him about, and he realizes now that we are much bigger, and there's much more to us than we know or are taught. In fact, we really kept hidden in the dark, So, but yeah, so he's quite excited for the future as well now. I say he's enjoying his retirement down there in Spain, but he's. In fact, he told me a couple of weeks later he got some ants come into his kitchen on his countertop. And bear in mind, he's a very successful engineer. He worked for himself many years, had his own business and everything in the aircraft industry. And these ants came up through an outlet and walked along his countertop. So I thought, I'm going to tell them to leave because obviously I prepare my food on there. So he spoke to them. There's about 10 or 12. And he said, well, I prepare my food on here. I don't want you walking on here. If you don't go back in that outlet, I'm going to kill you all. I'll spray you with this spray. Well, as he said that, all of them turned around and marched back into the outlet, apart from one. And I said to him, what did you do with that one? He said, I killed it. I said, but for him to try that, and then obviously to get his wife to ask the butterflies to land on her. And as I say, he sent me some pictures last week. And so, yeah, he's learning. He's learning that we are conscious beings having a physical, we're spiritual conscious beings having a physical experience. Yes. And he's expanding his knowledge, so which is amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting that he'd never asked you about it before. I mean, I guess that you didn't really speak about it. You had these amazing experiences, which we discussed on the first show, where you were leaving your body and flying behind the bus when you're on the school bus, and you were projecting your consciousness to see which bus stop was busy or not busy. Like, you were using all your conscious expanded psychic abilities, which we can all do. You're just one of these star beings that are here, that are activated, and we're all getting activated. And I guess you weren't speaking about it to him, were you? When
I wasn't really, no, because the only thing I really spoke to him about was when we had deceased family members who died, right. And then they came back to communicate with me. I remember on one occasion he was sat in my living room and I was talking about my Uncle Alec who'd passed. And he said, oh, is Uncle Alec here now? I said, yes, he's sat in. He said, where is he? I said, he's sat in that chair over there. And I obviously can have a conversation with Uncle Alec while he sat in that chair. But my Mike, my brother, he couldn't see him and he had no communication with him. But my wife had some communication, not verbally or telepathic, but was able to smell his pipe tobacco. Right. So I think what happens if you hang around people like me, I think your vibrational frequencies slightly elevate.
Yeah, I've spoken about this on the show. People say, come to me and I'll activate your DNA. And my guides say to me, when you're around people with activated DNA, such as you and me, then your DNA automatically acclimates. It's like a tuning fork. If there's a vibration and there's a different vibration, they come together and they start vibrating the same. It's the same. Exactly. So your DNA starts to, because it's more of a dominant vibration when it's activated, starts to activate. But then it's up to us to actually utilize, because, we're so conditioned into what we think is possible. And so we say, I can't do that. Until you try it, you never know that you can do it. Last night I was watching a video with, Giesman, what's her name? Giesman, who became a psychic medium. She used to be in the military because she started reading about it. And then she thought, wonder if I can do that. Now she's a professional psychic medium. So we never know until we actually start to try this stuff. Can I remote view? Can I speak to dead people? Can I, activate my third eye? But yeah, so it's so funny, Kevin, that after so many years of you being like this, he's just now starting to really explore these abilities in him. I don't know.
Yes, and clearly, he was fascinated by the butterflies landing on him, and like I said, just last week he sent me those extra photographs and things. So it's opened up his mind to the possibilities, and if he understands that connection in relation to consciousness and the insect world, as it were, or the elementary, I think they're part of the elementals, and what else can we achieve? Because really, it's the thought that creates, that manifests that future. And we have to have the thought first.
Exactly. We have to have the thought first. We have to have the belief first. So you could you know, as a teacher, somebody said that you're a teacher, you're teaching him, you could ask him to try other things, not just communicating telepathically with animals, but maybe try contacting Uncle Alec, or, you know, somebody that he want, you know, just say, try it, just try it, just still your mind or open your mind, as you say, and see what you get. Just try it. So
that's a very good point. In fact, he did take it one step further. He adopted a German Shepherd about 6 months ago, probably.
Nice.
I think he's about 5 years old, and it needed a new home, so he adopted it. And we were talking about telepathic communication, because I got a couple of German Shepherds, and I said, well, why don't you try your newfound skill on Atlas, his new German Shepherd? So he decided to try it one day, and what he would normally say to Atlas, do you want a biscuit? And he'd get excited. He'd run over to where the biscuits are kept in the kitchen cabinet near the floor, and he would scratch at the door. So that was his usual routine. He'd look at him and say, do you want a biscuit? And dog would go, yeah, I go like this. Anyway, so this time he just thought, he's not even looking at the dog. He's just, and he thinks, do you want a biscuit? He stood up and he ran over to the kitchen cabinet and started scratching at the door. So clearly the dog got the telepathic thought. And once you accept that, you know, and you can do that with other animals and, you know, birds and everything, really.
Yeah.
It really opens up to who we really are, and what abilities do we have? What can we create? I think.
So let me ask you a question. When you started finding out about who you are and why you're here, and when you were communicating with your galactic guides, as it were, when you were younger, I'm sure you were asking questions like, why are you talking to me? Who am I? What am I doing here? I hope you asked those questions.
Well, no, I don't think I did. No, I wasn't that inquisitive. All I asked for was more knowledge and more information.
But did you ever ask about your family? Like, are they like me too? Are they from the same galaxy, but they don't remember? Did you ask about your wife? Like, is she from there as well? Like, did you ask about the people around you?
No.
That's the thing about you.
I'm not quite certain, but I think I was brought up by, obviously my father died when I was 9, and my mother brought me up, and she brought us up with a very strict Victorian way, I think. And part of that was children don't ask questions. You sit there, you're quiet, because it's rude to ask a question. So I probably never asked questions because of that. I do now, obviously, but as a child, I didn't. And what I did do when I got to about 16 or 17, I would ask Art. I'd say, oh, look, I know there's a lot more to this. I need more information. So I wasn't asking about me or my wife, or, well, not into my wife then, or my family and friends or whatever. I just wanted more information. And that was the relationship. It was that they were teaching me through experiences, and I was learning. And I was lapping it up. And then anytime I needed some help with something, I would always ask my deceased father for help. And I would also ask Orton D. And I was able to resolve the issues or get where I needed to go. And once you learn to do that, you know you're not on your own.
Yeah.
You've got this whole library of people and knowledge that you can count, like going around to see your grandfather and asking him for help with something that he was very skilled in. Well, we've all got that. We've just got to ask, really, at the end of the day. And once you do that, I'm sure you can. I've always achieved the things I wanted to achieve. They were never outlandish things, but there were things that I wanted to achieve personally, and I was able to do that. So, but with the help of them. And I still ask to this day for their help. And did I tell you that time about when I had a couple of growths on my arm?
No, tell us.
Oh, okay then. Well, I mean, we're not talking about the book this time because we've spoken about that before. So, but I've many other smaller experiences that I can talk about. The one was recently, actually, past couple of years. I had a couple of moles on my left arm, 2 very close together, quite big, and one on my left arm, yeah, and on my right wrist. And then all of a sudden they started getting bigger. They started changing colour, and they started itching. So I Googled them, and they came back as like melanomas. So I thought, well, I'll have to go and make an appointment to the doctors and have them removed. I'd had them a long while, but they'd never been inflamed or getting bigger, or they were starting to crack and bleed and things. So I went to bed that night and I thought, oh, I'll ask R&D if they can remove them for me. So I get into bed, I relax, as I say, I open my mind, and I ask them, I say, I've got 2 melanomas. I've been on the Google today, and they look like melanomas. I've got 2 on my left elbow and 1 on my right wrist. Can you remove them for me this evening? If not, I'll have to make an appointment and go and see my conventional doctor and have them removed. And I went to sleep. I woke up in the morning, the 2 on my left elbow completely disappeared, no marks, no nothing, and they were quite big. And then the 1 on my right wrist, round the periphery of where it had been, was a red line. And then that red line disappeared by lunchtime. So they, but you see, I needed help with something. So I asked them and they removed them. So that's normal to me to ask.
It's not. Now, I've asked for things like that too, with moles and stuff like that. It's never happened to me, Kevin. My guides don't remove my moles. Hasn't happened to me yet. Maybe I'm not doing it right. I'll try again. After listening to this, I'll try again.
I'm not quite sure why it does happen, really, but I know there's a whole chapter in Ray Hernandez's book, Beyond UFOs. And I think that was written by, what's his name now? I forget his name. But there's a whole chapter in there on people that have had healings with the ETs.
Oh,
They've asked them for
Preston
healing.
Bennett. With Preston? Was it with Preston?
In fact, I've got the book here. Let me just get the book. Yes, it was with, let's have a look. His name's not on there. It is there somewhere. Because I was looking at it the other day, and I was just making a reference to it. But it's a big book, is that one. But it's that particular chapter is about medical healings with the ETs. So it does happen. That was just a simple one.
Yeah.
Some are much larger.
Have you met Preston?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, I'll introduce you to him. He's wonderful. But he has written a whole book about healings with the ETs. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I just remember the name now. It was Dr. I've forgotten again. Joseph Briggs, Dr. Joseph Briggs, that's it, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to hear your story as well.
Yeah, well, I had a connection to Dr. Joseph Briggs. It's quite funny. I was reading an account that he had of a group of UFOs appearing somewhere, and I can't remember the full story now because I haven't spoken about it for a while. But as I read the story, I remember it now. Yeah, it was experiencers who have a dream of craft appearing over the major cities globally, and he was talking about that, and he said that that was a common dream amongst experiencers. Now I've had that dream 4 times now in my life, that exact dream. So I made a comment.
Yeah. So craft appearing over the major cities simultaneously, like a big craft over every major city, like that. Is that the dream? Okay, go on.
That's the dream. Okay, and it's common with experiences. I wasn't aware of that. So because I had that dream at that time 3 times, now I've had it 4. I responded and said, "Oh, I've had that dream 3 times." And it's an amazing dream, and I'm always disappointed when I wake up that it was an actual dream. Right. But to learn that it was common among experiencers was very interesting. I put the phone down. We were in New York, believe it or not, for a weekend, and in Manhattan, and I looked out from the hotel window, and about 15 craft appeared, and just as pure lights, and then they moved about, formed a pattern, disappeared, came back again and formed another pattern. And to me, that was confirmation of Joseph Briggs' post in relation to the dream of craft appearing. So I had my own craft in New York appearing between 2 skyscrapers after I read that and put the phone down. So that to me was and I let Dr. Joseph Briggs know that that 15 craft had appeared, moved about, and it's quite, to me, it was confirming what he was saying.
So when was that in New York, when you had that sighting?
That was about 6 months before I was asked to go to New York on February the 1st.
So about a year ago.
Probably about a year ago. Probably,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I had Preston as our guest teacher for the Inner Sanctum this month, in the month of August. And I should have invited you to meet him. I didn't think. Anyway, I'll introduce you to him. Anyway, and we spoke about many things. And one of them was that it was confirmed by the ETs to many people that that actually will happen. So one of the members of our group said, will there be a mass sighting? And he said that with many people who have communication with ETs, that's confirmed that there will eventually be a mass sighting, that will happen. What have your guides said to you about that? Have you asked them about that? Like, will there be a mass sighting? Will there be ships over every major city?
No, I haven't. But I've met, I don't really know, Costa Macreus.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. Well, he was asked by his ET guides about 11 years ago to start a global CE5 movement, which he now has done. It's been going for 11 years. I was speaking to him the other day. And with his now, he's connected with 4 other groups. And they've got 1 billion people once a month collectively connecting with the ETs. They go outside into their yard at night, into their garden, and sit there and ask the ETs to show them a craft. And the craft appear. So we are having mass sightings, but they're being initiated by the people.
Yeah.
And so his I think it's called ET Let's Talk. And if you go onto his website, you can join and you get all the other members' information and things and where they're situated. It's very well organized. And but we are already, we the people, the citizens of Earth, are communicating with the ETs, and the governments can't stop us from going outside in our backyard and asking the ETs to show themselves.
Well, the governments can't, but here in Australia they can at the moment. We're under martial law. It's just crazy.
Oh dear.
There have been some silent protests come out, and there's half the people are being arrested. People are just being arrested for being outside at the moment. Unless you're outside exercising, which I found, because I was watching some videos this morning of people silently standing in silence just outside council chambers and stuff, and just prayer being put into paddy wagons. And I think to myself, they should have said they were outside exercising.
Yeah.
But they were honest. They said, we're just here in a silent protest. They don't like what's going on, and they're just being thrown in jail.
No, well, that would fall into the pattern where my ET said there would be the collapse of our societies, there will be turmoil, and then before we move forward to that, we have to create that new society, and we will co-create it using thought and consciousness, and we will co-create it with our ETs, because we are the creators. We are creating that future, and the more we talk about it, the more we are creating it. And because the movement's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, then it'll be exponential, and then we will co-create where the craft appear above all the cities at the same time globally. But we'll have this mandate protocol in place to receive them, which will be what I'm working on at the moment. I'm trying to get something together to do that, and we'll see. But there are others. I was speaking with another group last week. I went to a conference, a virtual conference, and they're doing the same on the legal side, trying to educate people to become ambassadors to meet with the ETs. So there's a huge group now. Groups joining together with a view to, we all know the ETs are here. It's only our governments that tell us that, they're hiding it from us. But we the people, we can communicate with them, the people like me. And there are many now. It's just amazing.
I think we could probably do a global CE5 in every major city where we call them in and create that mass sighting. Yeah, with people sitting.
That would be very exciting. Yes.
Let's get that organised, Kevin.
Yeah,
as soon as we get let outside in Australia, because we're all locked in. We've been locked in for like months now, months and months, and our Prime Minister is saying that he won't let us out until 80% of the 80% of the population are vaccinated. But I guess we can still do it inside our homes. We can still communicate.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. Yeah, I mean, you can, even open your windows and ask them to show themselves. And I said they are here to help. They are here to assist with our evolution. And that's why there were so many people speaking out. And I know that Mark, have you heard of Mark Sims?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, his experience is just amazing. It's very similar to Ray Hernandez, where they were both atheists, and they were contacted by the ETs, and it changed the whole direction of their lives in relation to what they're doing now. Their work's just amazing. So the ETs are choosing individuals directly, asking them to do work, which obviously within their capabilities, working towards this reveal, as they call it. And well, we can achieve it, because we can achieve anything as spiritual beings, however physical. Look what we've achieved in the past, and now we're going to achieve more in the future.
Yeah. You know, what I see, Kevin, is we need to shift our collective consciousness before we can become part of the space race family, because we're all too violent. And with people like you say you don't ask questions. You don't have that resistance, like that rebellious sort of pushback energy. And I think that we all need to take a leaf out of your book. What I'm seeing in Australia is, as we've had this tyrannical government enforcing there's just huge amounts of pushback. And I honor these people, but they're not getting anywhere as they try and fight the police and fight the government and fight the rule. We have to put down arms and stop fighting and be more peaceful. We can achieve a lot through peaceful actions and not like this constant fight pushback. Yeah, I think we can achieve a lot, and we need to understand that. So as I see these people being arrested this morning, for instance, I'm thinking, well, that didn't work. Maybe they'll try it again, but they'll try it in a different way, because you don't need to fight to get what you want. You can actually create it through your consciousness.
Yes, you can create it.
You can create it.
That's part of our evolution. It's part of our education. Once we learn that, I think, I can't remember what Gandhi said now, but he protests against his tyrannical government when he was alive. But he did it through peace, and he was very successful. And once we realize we can do that, and the power that we have to create something, then that's when we'll move forward. And that's why, and you're correct, Howard, in your assumption that we're not really a spacefaring society at the moment, because if we employ what we do here on our Earth out there in space, then we're going to create havoc. We need to develop our societies here first, with to protect the planet, protect individuals, and have more love and caring for people rather than wars. And we don't need any more wars, but we're still a war-mongering nations, aren't we, I think?
We are. And the war starts in ourselves. We have to stop being at war with what we disagree with. And there's plenty to disagree with. Like our tyrannical governments down here in Australia. But we have to stop fighting. We have to stop being at war. Okay, I want to get into I was going to read something from your book, I thought, which was great. I think I read it on another show. How do we know we are conscious? Some people never achieve knowing about consciousness. Some people find it hard to understand and believe. This book is for people who are curious, or perhaps they themselves have had an experience that they cannot explain and don't know where to turn. You are not alone. I love that bit of an excerpt from your book. But I want to get into your guides. I've spoken about your guides many times, but we'll just go the Council of Eight. I think that the last time you saw them collectively was when you were very young. Have you seen them collectively again in recent years? The Eight?
Yes, past couple of years. I can only tell my experiences through like a story, and they give me an experience, so that then I remember it, and then I can tell that story. And I met with all 8 just recently, the past couple of years probably. What happened was I was traveling on the astral plane outside of my body, and then Orton D came alongside in a craft. They asked me to go onto the craft. I went on the craft, and I saw them as pure conscious energy orbs. And I asked them at that time, how do you see me? And they said, Kevin, we see you as a pure conscious energy orb. I said, right, so let me see if I can get this correct. We are all 3 different beings. We are traveling outside of our physical as pure conscious energy on the astral plane in a craft that you've materialized or made, and the craft is conscious. They said, yes, that is correct. Your understanding is correct. So then Art said to me, Kevin, why don't you create your own craft and travel throughout the universe? And I said, well, it's all right for you because you've got your partner, D, and you've created this craft together, and you go anywhere you want to go. I said, I've got nobody to travel with, and how would I create a craft? They said, using thought and consciousness. So we had some other conversation, and then I left, and I've met them many times like that. But again, that was a lesson, and I did ask a question on that time. I said, how would I create a craft? And they said, using thought and consciousness. So the next stage of the story is, I hadn't heard from them for a couple of weeks, and I thought they might have abandoned me. So I thought, I'll try and create a craft. So I created a craft by thought. I went to bed one evening, and I'm in this craft. I created it with a small window, a chair, and I set off. And I'm traveling what I thought was stars that were traveling past me, and they turned out to be galaxies. So I thought to myself, well, I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm going. I better finish this experiment. So I closed my mind, and I'm back in my bed asleep, as it were. So then I thought, well, I'm going to try that again. But what I need to do is, I need to have a navigation system. So I thought I'll design a thought interface navigation system. And then I looked at some star maps during the day, and then I thought, oh, I'll go to Andromeda because that's where Orton D come from. So the following night, I thought, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to make a slightly bigger craft because I want more room. I want a bigger window at the front so I can see. And then I want this thought interface navigation system. So I go to bed, I'm designing all this, I've already looked at where I'm going. I create a craft, and I travel throughout the galaxies, and I go to Andromeda, and I go to a planet, and I fly around the planet in this craft that I've created. And I could see the clouds. I couldn't see down to the earth because there were all clouds. But I wondered at that time, as I was traveling around the planet, if I went into the clouds, would I be seen as a UFO? So that was my thought. Anyway, I went around the planet, and I came back home. I went back into my bed, and the following morning I thought, well, that was cool. I was able to create a craft. Now, as I said earlier, it had been a couple of weeks since I'd seen them. So I thought, well, I'll create another craft, and I'll go and find them. So I created the same craft, and I went off looking for them. I went to Andromeda, then I went to different galaxies. I went all over the place, and I couldn't find them at all. I then came back into my body, and I woke up. And as I woke up, all 8 were staring down at me from the ceiling, all 8 of them. And I said to them, I've been looking for you. Where have you been? They said, yes, we know. That's why we're here. But what they were doing, it was a lesson. They gave me the information in how to create the craft using thought and consciousness, which they do, but they wanted to see if I would use that newfound tool, that ability, and I did. But that's how they teach me. But if we can do that, they do that. We just don't know we have the ability to do it. Does that make sense? Could you follow that, Karen, or did I lose you?
No, that's perfect. You know, imagination, Einstein said, intellect will get you so far, imagination will take you everywhere. We don't.
But
I remember,
what is imagination? It's just
what
thought.
It's thought, exactly. I remember years ago, someone was asking me about my psychic abilities. And I said, it's just your mind, it's your imagination. They said, you know, no, it's not, you know, imagination. And I said, okay, so can you picture your bedroom? We were somewhere else. And I said, can you picture your bedroom? Can you see it in your mind? And they said, yep, I can see my bedroom in my mind. I said, that's you using your, you know, imagination to see something. And they said, yeah, but I already know what my bedroom looks like. But I, you know, how can I use it? And I said, it's the same thing. You just ask and picture it, and your imagination will bring you what you want. Yeah, we just don't understand the power of our thoughts and imagination. Yeah,
I would agree entirely, and that's how people like me and you and many others, they use that ability of thought and consciousness itself. I know when they give me downloads and things, and you know, give me a scientific formula for calculating the vibrational frequencies of dimensions, and because they know how to do all this, and that's how they travel with all these abilities they have, because they're combining the physical with the spiritual.
right.
And we've lost that, and we need to regain that.
What happens here on Earth that, because one, we're not educated to understand how powerful our thoughts are, and we're actually taught or conditioned into thinking that imagination is not real, and so don't give it any sort of trust or you know, cred. But what we do on planet Earth is we look out into what's happening and we keep repeating it. We keep focusing on what is. So, for instance, what's going on in the world is not to our liking, but all I see on social media at the moment is people just talking about what's happening and how unfair it is. And we don't understand that as we focus on something and think about it and recreate it in our mind and speak about it to others, we just keep recreating the same thing instead of thinking, okay, this is something that's happening that I don't like. What can I imagine that I do want? And then think about that, focus on that, and talk about that. And that's how we create a new world. But humans don't understand that they can do that. They just keep talking about what they see and they keep recreating it. Yeah. I know. It's
yes, I would agree with you, Karen. And then they also watch the television, which repeats the same things over and over again. Same old
crap, right.
Yes. So if you stop watching the TV, find other things to watch, other things to entertain you. I mean, that's what artists do. That's what musicians do.
Right.
People that write music,
right.
They think about it. They use thought and then create the music.
Right.
Well, it's no difference in creating the future. It's exactly the same. And once we realize we have these abilities, and if we get collectively together, that power of thought is tremendous. I'm sure you're aware of the 100 Monkeys story, where the monkeys were taught to wash seeds or rice in some water.
It's about critical mass. Yeah, it was a scientist that was experimenting with orangutans.
Was it? Okay.
Actually,
okay.
The story's been so. It's like it's whispers. Remember, you whisper something, you get into a group of people, you whisper something in their ear, and by the time the story comes back, it's a completely different story. That's what's happened with the 100th monkey story. It was a scientist that was working with orangutans. And he got them to wash the sweet potatoes, and when enough orangutans did that, instead of having dirt on their sweet potatoes, they washed them before they ate them. Orangutans all over the world started washing their sweet potatoes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's the 100th monkey. So it's critical mass. Once enough people collectively know something, then it sort of explodes in the minds of everyone because we're all connected. Yeah.
Everybody already knows it, like you might say, like a common sense or something.
Right.
So hopefully that's what the ETs are teaching us now. And I think it really goes to show with Costa Macreus and his ET Let's Talk group to get to 1 billion people now who clearly are going out and some get telepathic communications, some ask and they show them craft, but they're doing it on a regular basis. So it is that 100 monkeys story, really, isn't it? The
Absolutely.
same, whether it be with the scientists with the washed potatoes or my story.
Washing. It's funny hearing that story from so many people. It keeps getting changed. But the basic premise is the same. Once enough people believe in something, it's the critical mass. And my guides have said to me, it only takes 5% of the population to explode in the minds of everybody that this is a reality. But when you think about 5% of 8 billion people, that's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah, we're about 8 billion now, I think, aren't we?
Yeah, we're almost 8 billion, and we're probably 8 billion. But getting back to your guides, let's tell people who your guides are. So Orton D are human-looking ETs who stand about 8 feet tall, is it?
No, Orton D, when they materialised in my bathroom, they look probably about 6 feet tall, probably, from my position, looking at them in the bath. And I've seen them since, obviously, many times now. And I would say about probably 6 feet tall. They are human looking. They are Arcturians, and they're originally from Andromeda. That's what they tell me. And they also tell me that I'm part of their extended family, only my physical is in the 3rd dimension, where their physical is in the 5th dimension. And as we've already spoken, the only difference between the dimensions is the vibrational frequency. And I think we vibrate at between 62 and 68 hertz. I don't know what they vibrate at, but and like we said earlier, if you mix with the higher conscious beings, then that balances out the frequencies, and you come to an equilibrium, as it were. So,
So Orton D have physical bodies. Are their physical bodies the same as our physical bodies, or are they a different biological structure? Are they?
That's a very good question. I would have to ask them that.
You'd have to ask
they
them
look
that.
exact.
You know what?
I'm just not asking enough questions, Karen.
I know. I should give you a stack of questions to ask Orton D. That's what I should
yeah, give me a list. Well,
give you a list.
Give me a list, and I'll get them answered for you. That's what a couple of years ago. Do you know Kathy Marden?
Yeah. Okay, I've had Kathy on the show. She's gorgeous.
Okay, and her and Denise Stone and Dr. Melanie Barton. I met Melanie because Ort asked me to go to a MUFON meeting in Orlando. I didn't want to go, but I went, and I met Melanie. And through meeting Melanie, I met Kathy Marden and then Denise Stoner. And then what happened from there, they came round to my house once a month, and we did a meditation. Yeah. And then we had 20, I think, between 12 and 20 questions, and we asked all these questions. So there's lots of questions that's been answered. We recorded them, and they've been transcribed, and Kathy's going to publish them in a book coming out. So all the transcripts, or most of them, will be in her book. So we each asked 4 or 5 questions, and then they were answered by Ort, and some of the answers are quite amazing, really. So I'll have to send you a copy of her book when it comes out.
I think I've seen a couple of YouTube vids of those meetings. I think that's on your YouTube channel. You've got. I've seen them.
I did a channel with Susan Schatzer on her show, and I did a channel there with Ort, and she asked some questions, and then I did a channel at Ray Hernandez's conference in Miami a couple of years ago, and that Ra, the leader of the Council of Anunnaki, he spoke through me, and that's on the website as well. So there's nothing out there, I don't think, about Kathy and Denise.
I have seen a video. It might not be your video of you in that group. That group that you're talking about. I don't know.
Okay, then perhaps there is one.
I've seen it somewhere. But okay, so you can't bring Ort in now, can you? What does it take for you to channel Ort?
Well, I did a channel at the weekend. It's quite funny. We haven't been together, Kathy and Denise and Melanie, for a while, and she contacted me a couple of weeks ago and said, "Kevin, we'd like to contact with Ort again. Would you mind doing another channel?" I said, "No, not at all." So I went round to Kathy's house. She only lives 5 minutes from where I live. I don't think that's a coincidence. But I went round and we did a channel, and again she recorded it, and that'll be coming out in the book as well. So I usually like to relax and
prepare.
Sorry, go on.
Prepare. You like to relax and prepare.
Yeah, I like to relax and prepare. I like to think about it during the day sometimes. I have done them on a Zoom, and the channel doesn't come through as well, because if you're in the same room, you'll feel the energy. And what happens while I'm channeling, the air temperature immediately around my body rises about 10 degrees. We mentioned it. That's the conscious energy coming in. So I really like to prepare to do that. And I said the last one I did by Zoom, I think that was with Kathy. And but the people who are watching don't get the full effect of the channel, because it's not just the words that are spoken, it's the energy that comes through as well.
You know, I have a million questions for Ort, because what I see is that their way of living is who we can be. So we remain in our physical human structure, but we also, it's a bit like how you live your life. We also have the ability to, at will, leave our physical bodies and travel the universe, either in our astral form or create an aircraft in the astral form. And we have that ability. And so I'm fascinated to know what their society looks like, you know, really with all those abilities in place. What they eat, how they live, what their government's structure is like, their society is like, and how having these abilities, these psychic abilities to communicate with other worlds and beings on other worlds, like you and others here on Earth, and travel in astral form and hang out with their dead friends like you do, you know, like you can go in your astral body to the spirit side and hang out with your dead relatives or communicate with that, you know, how that integrates when everyone has that ability. Because on Earth at the moment, it's just the few that have that ability. But what does a society look like when everyone has that ability? That's what fascinates me. Like, that's what fascinates me.
And I would agree with you. I have thought about those things, but I haven't asked questions. But I have thought about them as myself. I'd love to know how their governments function.
Right.
They're probably very similar to ours in some degree. But once you have the extra knowledge that you are a spiritual being having a physical, then that gives you more responsibility in relation to teaching and how you treat your fellow people within that particular physical dimension that you're currently in.
Right.
It alters the whole perspective. So I know when I was 14 and I was asked to go to meet with the Council of Eight, and I was taken to a mothership. I don't think it's a mothership because it was so big, but I was taken up into the amphitheatre there, and the Council of Eight was sat at the front on the big desk on this elevated stage. But the whole of the hall was full of different beings and species. And at that time, when I was 14, I thought I was just there as a human specimen, just to have a look at and see what we look like. I didn't realise at the time, I do now, that all those people in the amphitheatre were delegates. They were all representing their sections of society.
Right.
So from that structure, they're very similar to us. I still think that they don't have the diseases that we have, or I know they do have some, but they're able to cure them because they have more knowledge in relation to how the physiology works. And the other thing is, if we have the ability to heal ourselves in very many ways. We're just not taught how to do it. So we need to be taught, and I'm sure they know how to heal themselves. And if they're unable to do it, then they have technologies that can heal them as well. So they won't have diseases. So we're really going through some of the questions here. What's their government like? Very similar to ours. Their health is much better than ours because they live much longer. They tell me they live 300 years. And then if you use Einstein's theory of relativity, if they're traveling away from Earth and then back again, time goes quicker here. So they may be able to live a lot longer than 300 years. That might be 300 of our years. But I mean, that's been proven in science here, that if you leave the Earth and come back, the Earth has stayed still to some degree. And the further you go away, the longer you go away, then there's that change in time. So, yeah, we'll have all this to discover.
Yes, we have all that to discover. You know, I had this thought this morning. I can't remember if it was this morning or last night, but very recently. When I was young and I was thinking about who I wanted to be in the world, I can't remember who said to me, but somebody said, knowing about health will be the most important thing you'll need to know as you get older. And it is the most important thing we need to know as human beings. And I thought, well, there's other things to think about. You know, people go into politics and science and all sorts of things. You know, why would health be so important? And it dawned on me this morning that conversation, and I can't remember who I had it with. It might have been with my guides in my head. I can't remember. As we're going through a global pandemic, I'm thinking, oh, that's why you said it was the most important thing. Because, you know, I'm well versed in health on all areas. Energy healing, physical healing, naturopathic, like I've studied it for 35 years. And one thing I thought about when I was a naturopathic student was that we just don't understand how our physical bodies work. We need to really, as a global society, understand how this vehicle works that we're driving in a much more comprehensive way. And we need to understand how the energy works in a much more comprehensive way, like consciousness. And we're not taught that in our world. And because we're not educated, we can get governments that say there's a global pandemic that's going to kill everybody. And you know, like this stuff can happen because we're not educated. And I thought, it just dawned on me this morning that that's why it's so important. And as you say, with Orton D, who have access to infinite intelligence, you can't pull the wool over their society's eyes, you know, like we are. It's happening to planet Earth. You can't blind people when you've got access to infinite intelligence like they do. And governments can't do on their world what's happening on our world. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yes, because when you have telepathic communication, you can't hide anything, can you?
Right.
We know politicians now, they speak, but very often they lie. Sometimes they tell the truth, but they want their agendas. And so the whole government structure would have to change. Our health system would have to change. The pharmaceutical industry would no longer be needed.
Right.
So these are the things that will change. And that's what keeps us enslaved here, because of the structures that we already have that have been in place for many decades. And how do we know whether the politicians or the pharmaceutical companies are lying to us? We don't. We trust them in relation to that what they're doing is for the best of humanity.
Yeah.
But perhaps the pandemic, this is my own personal view, is part of the great awakening and part of the shift in consciousness that we need. It's a knock on the head to wake us up. Because we obviously we don't like having the pandemic. You know, a lot of people have lost their lives, but do we still trust the pharmaceutical companies? Do we still trust our government? Because it don't matter which government, which country, they all seem to keep changing their stories to suit their own narrative. So I think possibly this is a big wake-up call, and this is the collapse of the societies that my ETs have told me there will be chaos and turmoil before the golden years. Right. But we're not looking way into the future. It's in our near future, from what I can understand.
So you think that in your and my lifetime, we'll see this golden age, this yes, you do. You do. Yes. So you're in your late 60s, you're a little bit older than me. So you think before you die, how long do you think you'll live till in your physical body, Kevin? Do you think you'll live a ripe old age?
95.
Oh, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Have you been told?
Yes, I asked them that question, but I've also created it. I've created the future for myself because I have a reason to live until I'm 95. Right. And that's because my grandfather lived until he was 94 and I wanted to outlive him. So,
okay.
So
That's your reason.
So that's my reason. That's my reason.
That's your reason. Okay.
And I keep myself healthy by I eat too much, but I try to keep myself healthy, and I'm healthy for my age. You know, I can't run a marathon now, but I'll still get up in the morning. I go out and do a couple of hours in the yard work and take my dogs for a walk. And so, yeah, and my grandfather was fit as a fiddle. He used to always get, in the late afternoon, he'd get dressed, he'd have a wash, have a shave, and he'd go out for a walk. He'd put his best clothes on and he'd just go out for a walk because he enjoyed walking and he enjoyed talking to people as he walked down the street. And he was a very fit man right up until he died at 94.
What did he die of?
He fell down the stairs and at my mum's house and hit his head on the corner of a telephone desk.
Oh.
He went into hospital and he did come out, but that sort of finished him off.
That finished him off. You know, when you said we've got the pandemic and it's terrible because we've lost a lot of people, I think to myself, when you understand that we don't die, you understand there is no loss. And because, you know, you are somebody that hangs out with dead people. You've said to me many times that you used to hang out with your dead relatives and it was so lovely in this heavenly realm. And they said, stay with us, stay with us. And you said, no, I'm not going to come back for now. I'm going to go and finish my physical and I'll see you all when I leave my physical. I'll hang out with you then. So you made this conscious decision not to go back to that heavenly, beautiful realm and hang out with all these, you know, astral forms of people that used to be physical. And I find that's an amazing decision to make. But you understand there is no death. You understand that.
Without a doubt, yes, the physical dies. But in fact, I've actually been shown my next incarnation.
Really?
And I have, yeah. They showed me my next incarnation.
Do you want to tell us?
I can do. It's they only showed me a small part of it, but I think it's the reason why they showed me it was to show. I don't have any fear of death. Obviously, I don't want to die yet because I'm still enjoying my physical. And as I say, I'm aiming for 95, and I've been asked. But they showed me my next incarnation, and I was on a vacation with a group of male friends, and I'm not sure whether it was a stag do or just a vacation. And we went to Brazil to the Mardi Gras, and we were at the Mardi Gras and enjoying ourselves as I went in my early 20s, and there was a large parade, and in front of the parade was this beautiful Brazilian woman leading the parade. And I just thought she was so beautiful, I'd like to meet her. Anyway, after the end of the celebrations during the day, we were out in the street celebrating, and this lady came along the street and I recognized her. So I went up to meet her and I introduced myself, and then we got to know one another. And then cut a long story short, we ended up getting married. But then I found out that the soul of this Brazilian woman was the soul of Sandy, my current wife now.
Oh, what did Sandy say about that being a beautiful, coming back as a beautiful Brazilian? Okay, let me get this straight. So in your next incarnation, you're incarnating, when I say next, because they're all happening simultaneously, but in our linear mind frame, you're coming back and you're incarnating onto Earth. What year is it?
They didn't give me a year, so I don't have a time scale on that. I have obviously told Sandra about it, and I've written about it now as well, so it's out there for posterity. But it's our 40th wedding anniversary this month, so I don't know whether she wants to spend another 40 years with me or not.
So why do you think you two have contracted to sort of spend so much time together, you know, in your Earth incarnations? What's the
what's a good question?
Spiritual. I know I'm full of good questions. So write them down, Kevin. Right.
That's a very good question. We clearly were meant to come together, to meet together. We both worked at university together. Sandy introduced me to Eric von Daniken's books when I was about 18 or 19, and so she was very interested in that subject then, and I read all the books. And then she's always had a fascination for the ETs, and Sandy helps
well,
me with.
surely, if you're an ET soul, like Orton D have said that you are part of our family, but you're like a soul that sort of hangs out more in Andromeda, who's come to Earth to be a communicator, or to, you know, to enlighten humanity about their galactic brothers and sisters, and also about raising consciousness and what's possible for us. You know, you have the abilities since a child. She would have that same mission. She's obviously from there as well.
Well, yes, but she has no memory of it. Although now the ET's contact with her, and in fact, just recently, I can't remember the date now, but I was communicating with, I was trying to communicate with the Council of Eight. I'd woken up one morning and I thought I'll just communicate with them and see if, you know, let's have a bit of conversation. And I wasn't able to make contact with them, but there was a craft flying past at the same time. And on the craft were about 6 or 7 small greys. And the craft was being piloted by a grey who I do know. His name is Tia. I met him first when I was 14. And I asked what he was doing in the area. And he said that they were in the area. They've deviated off their flight path because they wanted to come and see where I lived. So we had some other conversation. And then they said, right, we'll have to go because we've already said we're off our designated flight path, so we'll have to go. So they left. Nothing unusual for me. I saw all their faces. I saw inside the craft, and we had the communication. So then I got out of bed, and Sandy was already outside on the pool deck. We normally have a cup of tea and a cup of coffee in the morning. I got my coffee, went to sit next to her, and she said, oh, you missed the most beautiful rainbow this morning. And she said, I said, did you get a photograph of it? She said, yes, I did. I got the iPad out. I said, oh, that's good. And then she said, you'll never guess what happened next. I said, no, what happened next? She said, a craft appeared under the rainbow. Now, the rainbow was, we've got 5 acres at the back. The rainbow was 180 degrees from fence line to fence line. And the craft, she was taking a picture of the rainbow. The craft, she went like that, took a picture, took it down. The craft appeared, she lifted it back up and pressed the photograph. Then she went to look again and it had gone.
Yeah.
Now, but what happened then, when we looked at the time on the photograph, the time in the bedroom when I was talking to Tia was 8:30 on the clock. The time on the photograph was 8:30. So it's really that they're confirming that A, I'm speaking to Tia with the craft, and then the giving Sandy the second part of the information by allowing her to take a photograph of the craft. So, yeah, she's an integral part of all this. And, you know, without, I mean, I do a lot of work now on a lot of Zooms, and Sandy's watches the food programs, or I like doing my Zooms, but she's happy for me to do my Zooms and spend the time doing what I do. So, in fact, did I mention my new book? Have I mentioned that yet?
No, I didn't know you had a new book. Have you finished it and got it published already?
Let me think about that.
Tap into universal energy. Ah.
Yes. No,
show us the back of it.
It's I wrote it with 2 friends of mine. It's co-authored with Edgar Yole and Melissa Kennedy.
Put it up a bit further. Oh, lovely. Ah, lovely. Tap into universal energy.
The story I've just told you about the rainbow, I've included it in here with the photograph.
We did talk about it the first time I had you on the show, and I included the photograph on my website.
Oh, right. Okay, then.
On my page that has all your interviews with me on my page. And the UFO looks like a bit of a black blur under the rain.
It does. It's it's out of focus.
Yeah.
But I've got some, I sent them to a friend of mine in the UK, and he put some filters on them with the different colours. And when you put the filters on, you can see the craft clearly inside that black blurb.
Okay.
And I think the black blurb is like the, I don't know what you would call it, a shield or something around it.
Yeah.
But you can see there's a solid object in the middle. So,
you know, it's like we've been going for about an hour and a quarter already. I wanted to get into your guides. So I had some questions about your guides. So for people that don't know, that's Orton D, who are the Andromedans. then there's a grey, a tall grey or a short grey?
There's two greys, there's a tall one and a short one. The short one is called Zark, and he's a mathematician, an engineer. He's from the Pleiades system. He is married and he has 3 offsprings. They don't call them children, they call them offspring.
So he's a grey from the Pleiades system. He's not a Zeta from the Zeta Reticuli system. He's a grey.
No, it's not what he tells me.
So
he's
because there's so many different greys, and I think we as humans lump them all into one category. Some of them say that they're AI, you know, they're biological sort of robot type things, and some say they're negative and some say they're positive, but they're just so numerous. So his grey body, what does it look like? Your sort of average grey body? Does he have more human looking?
Yeah, just your typical he's only small, about 4 foot, 4.5 feet.
Yeah.
Just your typical small grey. And then there's another grey called Tag, and he's a tall grey, and probably about 5'8", 5'9", maybe possibly 6 foot. I'm not quite certain really, but obviously the difference between the two in height, you know, one's up here, one's down there. And he tells me he's responsible for the security of the Council of 8, and also the security of this quadrant of the galaxy, and that's his role.
And where is he from?
I don't know. I'm asking that, and he didn't tell me that. So I've only got a little bit of information on each one of them. The most I have of is Zark himself, because I've had a lot of communication with him, and he's the one that moves my wife's personal items around the home because he thinks it's funny. And he's the first ET that I had contact with where I felt his emotion, and the emotion was laughter. I think I can't remember whether I told a joke or he did, but he laughed, he smiled. Oh, I remember it now, yeah. I told him a joke. I said something that was funny, and I could see his face quite clearly, and he smiled. And as he smiled, I felt the emotion of laughter, and I'd never felt the emotion of any of the ETs before. So that really gave me more information into the fact that, because I've read so many things about them saying they don't have any emotion, and that's why they're here, they want to share ours. But clearly Zark has emotion, and I know that they have family issues as well, because at one point in time he had to go back home, and he was away for about 2 or 3 months because he had some family issues to sort out. So again, they still have families like we do. So by talking about them, we're learning a little bit more about their family life. And
I'm going to give you a project, Kevin. I'm going to give you another book. I want you to telepathically tap into all of them and ask them a whole stack of questions and write about it, like who they are, where they come from, what their society's like. That's going to take you a while. Yeah, because I think I've quizzed you before about them, because I am fascinated about who these people are, how they live, you know, how they come together in such diversity, how they come together to work. I'm getting a picture of a mantid being, a huge picture of a mantid being, because I think I've asked you about, is it Tika? What's the mantid being called?
Tika.
I think I've asked you about her, and you don't have much information on her.
No, I know she's very intelligent, and I know she doesn't have a sense of humor, because I asked if, and I'm not sure whether this is a she or a he. I get the feeling he's a he, but I asked him once if he was an entomologist, and he wasn't happy about that.
Yeah, because I'd love to know more about them.
Yeah, perhaps I'll have to ask them.
So then there's Ra. So Ra is a human looking, and he appears to you. You say he's Anunnaki. He appears to you like an Egyptian. He looks like an Egyptian.
Yes, like an ancient Egyptian with the curly beard and the curly hair. So and he's also tells me that, which will go into some other spiritual teachings that I've learned about, that he tells me he's a 9th dimensional being, right. And he fluctuates between the physical and the spiritual. Yeah. And above him is a 10th dimensional being who just is in spirit, has no physical at all. Yeah. And her name's Shiva, and she oversees the Council of Eight. But I know that Ra's over 5,000 years old, and he was alive during our ancient Egyptian times. But I did ask him a question just for you, Karen. I asked him if he was the Egyptian god Ra that we all know about. And he said, no, he wasn't. He said he was alive in that time, but he spells his name differently. It's R-A-H, where the god Ra was R-A. I mean, that might be semantics, but I did ask him that question because I knew about him in our Greek mythology, Greek history, or ancient Egyptian history, whatever it is.
So if he exists in a ninth dimension, in the ninth dimension, corporeal bodies like physical form is not necessary, but he can manifest a physical looking form, like an astral form, I suspect, or something that the other ETs who are in bodies can perceive as a being, and that's how he portrays himself as a human looking Egyptian. So like one of his past lives on Earth, basically.
Yes, I was giving a talk a few years ago now to a group of people, about 40 people, and I was talking about my book. That's what I went to talk about. And there was a few people I knew in the audience, and one of my friends, she's a psychic, and she's able to communicate with ETs and deceased family members and things like that. And she said, Kevin, she said, when you were giving your speech, there was someone stood behind you. And I'd never described Ra to anybody. I'd never even spoken about him really, other than his name Ra, and he leads the council and he's Anunnaki. And she described him to a T, and she described his features. She described his hand, the way he's holding his hands, and he always holds them in a specific way, which nobody knows. And she described all that. And she said, well, he stood behind you. He was stood behind you all the time you were speaking. So that was, again, confirmation for me in relation to, no one else saw him, but she could. And the confirmation was the fact that she could describe him.
And how he holds his hands.
Yes, yeah.
So we've got the tall grey, short grey, Tika, Ra, Ort, and D. That's 6. And then there's a bird being.
That's Anna. Again, I don't know much about her other than she's a healer. She's
you don't know where she's from, like what?
No, I didn't ask her that.
Planet.
I mean, very often they just give me information, and I mean, I could ask. I mean, now you've asked all these questions, they might come to me.
Okay, that's your project.
In a dream this evening and give me all the information, because I'll say it's just for you, Karen.
No, it's for everybody. I've just inspired it, but I think that you can even ask your tribe if they have questions for them, and maybe write a book all about them. Do a book all about them.
Yes, a possibility.
They're happy.
I'm writing something else for. Ray Hernandez asked me to write a chapter for his new book, A Greater Reality. And so that's coming out the first 2 volumes are coming out in October. And the second 2 volumes are all experiences like myself, who's been asked to contribute a chapter. So what his ETs have asked him to do is bring our current scientific understanding of all these modalities of contact together with the experiences, because the experiences are having those experiences that the scientists who understand these can explain scientifically. So it's really bringing the two together. So that'll be very interesting. And then I've just been asked to write.
I'll have to have Ray on the show. I haven't had him on the show yet. I've thought about it many times, and I just haven't got around to it. I'll have to get you to introduce him. I think we're connected on Facebook. I think we've had a few chats on Facebook, Ray and I. But I can
introduce him if you want. Yeah, I mean, I speak to him. I know he's very busy. He's got a full-time job, and he's organising this book, and he does all sorts of talks and Zooms, and I don't know where he gets the energy from.
Yeah, well, I don't know either. So, okay, what's the last one? So the bird, the bird being that you
That's
saw,
Anna, yeah.
when we first spoke, you called her a blue avian, which is the name
I did, yes.
that Corey Good had given to his guides, but that was his name. She didn't give you a name. You just looked at her and like a name of her species, what I'm saying. You just saw
what
her
I did with
bird.
her, I looked up different species on Google. I just Googled them, different ETs. And I saw one that looked almost like her, except she had a chicken. This one on the Google had a chicken beak, and she had more like a duck-bill beak.
Yeah.
But she was called. This one on there was called a blue avian.
Yeah.
So I called her a blue avian from that photograph that I saw.
Yeah.
But so I don't have that direct from her, but she's clearly blue. She's clearly a bird because her feathers are very small and very tightly packed. And I know she's an empath because when I was introduced to Chica, the mantis, when I was 14, I was a bit apprehensive, to say the least, shall we say. And she stood up and came up and put her arm around me to console me because she could feel the anxiety, shall we say, I was having of meeting this large grasshopper. I'm not bothered now. I've met him several times and I'm okay with it. In fact, I had a grasshopper land on me the other day, Karen. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I've got this chair under a big sycamore tree, and I walk out with my dogs and I go and sit in that chair and I just look at the wonders of nature, the big trees, the plants, all the insects, the animals. We've got all sorts wandering around. If you sit down and see what's going on, it's amazing. And I saw this huge grasshopper come flying or jumping towards me, and I got this thought, he's going to come and land on me, is that big grasshopper? And it came straight towards me. It dropped about 4 or 5 feet in front of me. And I'm still looking at him. I'm thinking, you're going to land on me. And then he jumped to the right, to the left, sorry. I'm sitting to the left. And I'm still looking at him. And I thought, I'm still sure you're going to jump on me. So he jumped back right in front of me at the same spot. And then he made one almighty leap and landed on my chest. I'm looking down at him like this. And he's walking up. And I thought, oh, you're ugly. Anyway, he's walking up to my open collar here. And I said to him, I don't mind you landing on me, but don't go down my collar. Go and sit on my shoulder, and you can sit there as long as you want. So he changed direction and went and sat on my shoulder. And he sat there for about 5 minutes, and then he disappeared. But there was that connection there from I knew he was coming. He's obviously seen me. I thought, I'm going to go land on him. And he did, so.
One of the girls in our group, in the Inner Sanctum group, Sarah, sent a video of her talking to this rather large green praying mantis insect.
Right.
About how many inches? 6 inches, I think. It's sitting on her wrist. And he's beautiful. I'll send it to you. She's having a chat with him, and he's sort of like, he's just beautiful. He's just mesmerized. I've watched it so many times. It just mesmerizes me. He's just beautiful. Bright green praying mantis.
They're amazing.
So your mantid guide, your grasshopper guide, he looks like more like a praying mantis than a grasshopper, though. Is he green?
Oh, yes. He's got that square head, the big eyes, and the big
you mean a triangle
elbow
head?
things.
Triangle head?
Yeah, a triangle type. Yeah, with the big mandibles and the dark eyes.
And is he green or brown?
No, I got a golden colour with him, not green.
Okay.
A golden colour. Yeah. So I don't know what colours they do come in, but I had one on my fence of the day, and we have a lubber here. It's a grasshopper that's about 4 or 5 inches long. It's huge. And I took a picture of that one. And he looks just like the same eyes and face and the mandibles, the same as the praying mantis with Chica. Very similar facial structure. But he just sat there and let me take a photograph of him. But I don't think they have any predators because apparently they're poisonous, I think, if you eat them. So I didn't eat it. I just took a photograph.
Okay. And who's the last one of that council of 8? Who are we missing?
Oh, that will be Orla. She's a tall white. And I believe she's an astrobiologist. Yeah.
An astral biologist. Astral?
Astro. You're space biologist, I don't know what you call them.
Astro. So tall white, is she human looking?
Yeah, she's a little gaunt, and her hair is almost translucent.
So she's tall, like 6 foot, and thin.
Yes, tall 6 foot with this long hair that comes down.
Is she ghostly looking, sort of ethereal?
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's a good. Yeah, very pale.
And look like a thin woman.
Very thin woman. Yeah, exactly. Have you seen her?
I'm just getting an image in my head. I'm getting an image in my head.
You don't need me. You don't need me, Karen. You've got your own contact.
Yeah, but I'm for the people listening to this, trying to give them an image, a picture of what we're looking at. But and I suppose you don't know too much about her too. Okay, I want you to fulfill my project. I want to know all about these people. What is her role in the council?
That's a very good question again. I only know a couple of the individual roles, like I told with Tag, obviously Ra, who leads the group. That's about it really for their role within the group. Well, I would say that they are professional people like we have here who go into like a government position.
Right.
And perhaps they make the decisions in relation to what their governments are wanting. It may be even decisions into connecting with the species like ourselves who are still developing. I'm sure, there are many throughout the galaxies in our position who are currently developing, and they will move about and help them. And they've got their own protocols that they can't just turn up all the time and interfere unless they're being invited. So that's why we need this mandated protocol. And I've got an idea about that now. If we can get a copy of the, I'm creating this now by talking about it, if we can get a copy of the mandated protocol that our governments use to receive our ambassadors from foreign countries, like Australia or New Zealand or other countries, and then we include in that the ETs and the fact that they will have guaranteed security and they will be safe within the approaches to our Earth within its atmosphere, and then again when leaving. So we really have a mandated protocol. We just need to update it and include the ETs in that. So it's not a difficult task. I've just got to get a copy of this mandated protocol and then obviously hand it to some attorney somewhere to have a look at it and then get people to sign it, and we'll take it from there. Perhaps you could be the first to sign it, Karen.
I'll sign it, Doug. I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm thinking about the project I'm giving you. You can contact people like Preston's sister-in-law is an ET spirit artist. So you think about the memory of people that you know, and she can tune in to your memory, to your vision, and she draws them. So
really, yeah, I've been thinking about that. I saw one recently where somebody in a group had put a collection of ETs together, and I could identify several of mine, as it were, within that sketch of those people. There were two that looked like Orton, one that looked like Tag, one that looked like Zark. There was no Ra there. But yeah, that would be good to have because once you've got a physical rendition, it makes them more real, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And it helps humans with their imagination, and it helps the focusing power of thought. If we can visualize these people, look at them, think about them, if we can fill our consciousness with the reality of them, then we bring the manifestation of the reality onto Earth. So instead of thinking about the problems of the world, we focus on regaining our star family and all that they have to bring, because all their technology, the way they live their life, usurps any problems that we're having currently as a human population. The fear-based consciousness, the illness and diseases that we go through, the corruption that we go through. I mean, they've got the solutions to all of that, but they're not going to do it for us. They need to educate
no.
us, but they can educate us. So yeah, I'm excited about the reveal or disclosure. Everyone's screaming about what's happening in our world and how unfair it is and how awful it is, and utopia, you know, like control and corruption, and yeah, they're all screaming about it. And I
think probably with this pandemic, it's highlighting how corrupt we are as a society, global society. It's not just down to one country. We're all corrupt. Unfortunately, we've got this hierarchical level of corruptness within, which is endemic within our societies.
You know,
and we need to change that.
You know what amazes me, Kevin? We've been yakking for about an hour and a half. What amazes me is I've spent my whole life studying alternative healing, and we hit a health crisis globally, and the governments and the people making the decisions for humanity at large have totally negated any form of alternative healing, any form of alternative, like homeopathy and herbalism and diet and exercise and energy healing and any form of acupuncture. You know, these ancient therapies have been around longer than pharmaceutical, you know, healing, and yet they've been completely negated and thrown out as globally we're getting mandated to have only one, you know, solution to this health crisis. You know, what happened to herbs? What happened to acupuncture? What happened to any of that stuff? It doesn't sort of, and that's what I think is kind of crazy. It's like these are ancient established healing techniques, yes, and yet they have no authority in what's happening in our world. It's just.
And I would agree with you. And what's their ulterior motive? Obviously, This is obviously a global pandemic. We've had them in the past, and we do get through them. But now we're being forced, as Europe was forced in 1939 leading up to the Second World War. And I think a lot of the tactics that are being used are very, very similar. Obviously fear and coercion, and I think fear is one of the main things. And then mandating, forcing us to have medical procedures, whether we want them or not. You know what's happened? Freedom of choice.
Exactly. And on a daily basis, I'm getting emails and phone calls from people that are in crisis because they're being forced to do something they'd prefer not to do to keep their jobs. Or, you know, I've got a friend who's got a business, and all the girls that work for him are like trying to force him to do something, or they're all going to quit. You know, like we're being forced to do something. And what happened to herbs and acupuncture and homeopathy? Exactly. And, you know, what happened to all that stuff? They're established in the mainstream mind, and yet they don't seem to have any. Anyway, so what have your guides, have you been speaking to them about this? You know, what have they said to you about what's happening?
They said that we will get through the pandemic, we'll come out the other side, and then obviously move towards these golden years for humanity.
Did they say when? Did they give you any sort of time frame?
No, the time frame possibly. Yes, it's close. It's very near. It will be soon.
So what's soon? A year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years?
I would, my own personal opinion, they haven't told me, within the end of next year. There's a tremendous amount of work being done at the moment, which people are unaware of unless you're within the spiritual realm, the religious realms in relation to those that understand about the ETs, and there are many. And even some of our leading scientists are now coming over to the fact that they realise that the ETs are here. They've acknowledged the fact that it's been hidden from us by our governments again. You know, the governments are supposed to work for the people, and it seems to be the governments just do what they want now. Well, when that happens, there's a shift in consciousness, and as with past shifts, when governments have become tyrannical, then the people have to stand up, or they'll be ruled by tyranny. And it's not just any country, it's global now. Right. So, but I'm still very confident for the future. and my ETs are confident for the future, and I think it will unroll rapidly. So we'll by the end of next year, I think we who work in the, I call it an industry, who work in the industry, we've already had our disclosure because we have our contacts. There are many others now. We're all talking together. We're all getting confirmation. And like with Costa Macris, 1 billion communicating with the ETs. I mean, that's just tremendous. That's a huge amount of work over an 11-year period. So you can't stop that. It's going to
He says that there are
continue to go.
He says that there are 1 billion people communicating with ETs. Is that what he says?
1 billion people. He's connected up with, I think, 4 groups in total. And within those 4 groups, I think it's 1 billion. I thought it was 1 million at first, but it's a billion. 1 billion people.
Wow.
So that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. It is a tremendous amount of work. So and you can't stop that because that's human development. It's, well, I suppose you can by being ruled by tyranny.
Yeah.
It
So
stifles growth.
It looks desperate at the moment, but we're on track and we're in good shape to create a new world, a new planet, a new way of living in the world, a more fair and more unified, more loving, more connected world, and to rejoin our star family. So we just have to, the people that are not out there fighting and screaming and marching, and what can we do? We can keep visualizing what we want and sit tight. It's happening, kids.
It is happening. And, you know, I just keep saying we can co-create. Imagine the future that you want, and we will create it. And you don't have to use violence. You don't have to demonstrate, although perhaps that's how people do it who don't have the abilities or understanding of consciousness.
Right.
So they're still fighting and standing up for humanity.
Yeah.
They're doing it for their future generations.
Yeah, I think that what people are trying to do, the people that are waking up, they're not particularly awake at the moment, like the truck drivers that are striking in Australia and the mums and dads that are out there on the street screaming and yelling. They're trying to get the government to stop doing what they're doing because they want to return to where we were. Like, well, I want the restaurants and the shops to open, and I want to return to my old life, instead of moving forward and saying, maybe there is a better life. You know, we're not going backwards to what we were doing before. You know, maybe that was good. We could do what we liked. We could shop to our hearts. You know, we could eat at 1 million restaurants. We could do all that stuff. But maybe that's not what the new world's all about. It's not about how many clothes we can buy and how many restaurants we can go to. There's something else so much better that's waiting for us. So we have
without a doubt, yes.
Yeah.
And I think it will be new governments, new way of
living,
looking after our planet,
and looking after each other,
sustain it, so they can sustain us, looking after one another. And you know, how many restaurants do you need to go to? I know we all enjoy going out, but you know, can we cut the choice down and then spend more money on health things? I'm going to say develop, like, you know, there are many people that use Reiki for healing, energy healing, and they're always poo-pooed by the mainstream because they don't want that. They want to supply you with drugs and all the things that make them money. Where if you can be healed by somebody using Reiki or energy healing or through consciousness or through thought, well, people are going to go out of business. Big businesses are going to go bankrupt. You won't need it, you know. And that's what they're fighting for, to keep the society that they've got. They're happy with it. But we, the people, we're not happy with what they want for us. So we are, I mean, we've been here before in the history. The Roman Empire was the same, but it collapsed. We've had various times in our history where the same thing has happened and the government has collapsed because they oppressed the people. The French Revolution, the revolution over here, they're all the same. They're all about the same thing: taxation, over-taxation. I'm no historian, but, you know, I did a little bit of history at school and I know a little bit about it. So it's really just history repeating itself. But we have to move forward I mean, when we went in from the Industrial Revolution, people didn't want to change because they thought they'd lose all the jobs. But then we changed, and then we had the Technical Revolution, then we changed again. Well, we're now in a new revolution, which is going to include the ETs, self-healing.
It's a consciousness revolution.
Consciousness, that's it. That's the key. That's the key. So
it's a consciousness. I was just going to say to you before, you don't need the restaurants because your wife's such a good cook.
She is. She's an excellent cook. Yes.
Kevin was saying.
I made a great choice there. She loves cooking and I love eating. So we're a match made in heaven.
Great match. Kevin was saying when he came on that she cooked this beautiful Thai meal and it was very spicy. So he was bright red and boiling hot when we first came on. Oh, darling one, I think we'll leave it there. I've got so many questions for you and your guides, but I want you to ask them all those questions. Maybe you could get me and other people to send you questions and sit and
I will
ask them
and see. I will ask them and see what they say. I will say I need more information for Kevin.
Not just for me, for all of us, so that
everybody
we can, it helps us envisage a new world. It's like ask them about who they are, where they come from, what their world is like.
Okay.
And it just helps us because I think that as we think of the new world, people that aren't imaginative, they go, well, what does it look like? What does it look like if we have different governments? And, what does living look like? And what happens if there aren't all the shops? And what happens if we have no money? And how do we live?
Because some people don't have that imagination.
Right.
I mean, obviously you do, I do, but I see them anyway. So, if they have a description and the more information they have, they can better visualize them. Yeah, I understand what you're saying now. So it is important. It's not just for you then, it's for everybody.
Not just for me, it's for everybody. Exactly. Thanks so much, honey one, for coming. And so how do people contact you that want to, send you some questions?
Well, email me directly if they want to. It's just my name, Kevin James Briggs @gmail.com. That's straightforward, just Kevin James Briggs @gmail.com. And my website is similar, but it's Kevin, just the initial J for my middle name, Briggs.com. So it's www.kevinjbriggs.com for the and you can contact me through there as well if you want.
I've got kevinjamesbriggs.com. Let me have a look at that. That's an old
that was my old one. I changed it now.
You've changed it. I'll have to change it on my website.
kevinjbriggs.com.
Okay. I'm glad you told me that. I didn't know that. Beautiful. All right, honey one. So great to connect with you again.
Okay, it's been a pleasure, Kevin. Thank you very much.
Another incredible conversation with Kevin. He had a whole bunch of notes that he was going to talk about all these conferences that he's been to and all this sort of stuff that we didn't even get to because we had other things to talk about. We had no agenda, really. I just said to him, let's get you back on the show and have another chat. No agenda, but we had plenty to talk about. And I was just talking to him after I turned off the recording, as I do. And he told me something really fascinating. He said a friend of his is a doctor in Senegal, and his daughter, the friend's daughter, is also a doctor, and that he wrote to him, emailed him recently to say that in Senegal, they've been using that drug hydroxychloroquine. I don't want to say it. I don't know if it'll get me censored. And they've basically eradicated the problem. Without using the rollout of the allopathic solution that is being forced on us. So I found that really interesting. He said, I wonder if you could Google that information to get more information about that. And I said, no, it won't be on Google. It won't be there. But so I don't know, look up Senegal and see what's happening in Senegal. But that was direct information from Kevin's friend, who's a doctor who works there. That's direct. So that was really interesting that Senegal, I've got all these images in my head of the Senegal people dancing. Oh my God, wearing blue tunics, schoolgirls. Anyway, I shouldn't close my eyes. I get all these images when I close my eyes. So that's really fascinating. And Kevin also told me that before he was a police officer, because he was a police officer in England when he lived in England, he was working at the university, working in immunology and virology, and so he actually has quite a lot of information about what's happening in our world. And I'm like, I didn't know that about you either, Kevin. Anyway, it's amazing. I should never turn off the camera. We just keep talking. But he said that's where he met Sandy, his wife. They were both at university together. So he says he has a rudimentary, I think a bit more than a rudimentary understanding of pathogens and viruses and vaccines. He used to test vaccines. He used to work testing different vaccines and all that sort of thing. So that was really interesting. It was really interesting. Didn't know that about Kevin. He's a wealth of information, but I'm going to get him to write this new book about the Council of Eight. I said, ask Dee to ask the council if they'd be up for giving more information. I'm sure they will. They've told me they will. Yeah, I give him all these projects. But yeah, fascinating to hear more about who they are, how they live, and yeah, about how they heal, maybe how they evolved out of only looking at physical healing into looking at consciousness to heal. That's 300 books on itself. You know, how to heal through consciousness and how to evolve out of looking down a microscope and looking more at the body as an energy system rather than a physical system of molecules and pathogens and, you know, and cells, but looking at it as a physical energy system. I mean, as I was saying to Kevin, ancient medicine has been doing it for thousands of years, like homeopathy, and well, not thousands of years with homeopathy, but hundreds of years with homeopathy, and acupuncture, thousands of years. And there are these ancient healing technologies that are mainstream and accepted, even, you know, that you can go to your health insurance provider and you can get, you know, money back if you have an acupuncture treatment or a massage treatment. So they're accepted as mainstream healing techniques, and yet they're not considered in how to heal what's currently going on. They're not considered at all. They've been pushed aside. Like, I'm an energy healer, so I use my consciousness to heal, and I've done that with myself many times. It doesn't mean that I'm completely healthy. I'm still dealing with problems in my body, like pain, because I don't exercise enough and I'm too fat. But and my guide said to me, just stop eating so much sugar and bread and get out there and exercise more, and you'll have less pain in your joints. And I'm like, fair enough. But I do. I've used my consciousness to heal cracked bones and to eradicate cancer and all sorts of things. So that's what I rely on. I don't go to doctors. I don't. My neighbour said to me, when's the last time you went to a doctor? I said, a few years ago, I had a really, really sharp pain in my body, and I thought, oh, I better go and check out, see what's happening. Had all manner of CAT scans, blood tests, x-rays, and there was nothing wrong with me. Then I asked my guides about it. I was having a bit of a moment of doubt because, you know, sometimes we doubt ourselves. I do this and then I think, maybe I'm wrong. So I had a moment of doubt, and they said, oh, you just released a kidney stone. It does hurt. And I'm like, okay, okay, I shouldn't have doubted. But I went to the doctor probably about 10 or 15 years ago when I had bronchitis. I had a chest infection, and it came back 3 times. And when the third time when it came back, like it healed, you know, I went through that sort of normal symptoms of coughing and mucus and blah, blah, blah. And then it came back a few weeks later, a couple of months later. And then I thought, oh, I'll just go to the doctor and I'll get a script for some antibiotics, and I'll just knock it on the head with some drugs. You know, like I hadn't taken drugs for years, but I thought, no, I'll go get some drugs. Again, a moment of doubt. But I went to the local doctor at the medical centre in the suburb near me at the time. And he said, why are you here? And I said, oh, I've had this infection that just keeps coming back. I came for some antibiotics. And he said to me, a classic, he said to me, oh, you don't want antibiotics. Antibiotics are poison. And I looked at him like, what? A doctor said this to me? And I just said, yes, I know, right? And he just confirmed what I knew. I loved it, from a medical doctor who's working at the local medical centre in our suburb. And he said, go home, rest, take some garlic and vitamin C and, you know, hot lemon juices and honey and ginger, and you'll be fine. And that's exactly what I did, and I was fine, and it never came back. So in those moments of doubt, I do, well, you know, sparsely, I don't do it. I don't take painkillers for headaches. If I have a headache, I think, okay, I need to stress and relax, or get off the computer, or go for a walk, or get in the ocean. Yeah, I just cleanse my body with my consciousness, with my knowing. I ask for white light to cleanse my body. Oh my God, we're so powerful. When humanity wakes up to their power, it's going to be a different world when we understand how powerful our thoughts are. That's why I want to know about other planets where ETs do know, like Orton D and other Arcturians and Palladians, where they do understand the power of their consciousness. What does their world look like? Yeah, I want to know. What does it look like when we have a whole society who understands the power of their consciousness? What do you think? What do you imagine? Send me your thoughts. What do you think the world looks like when everyone awakens to the power of their consciousness and the power of their thoughts, and they stop focusing on what they don't want and start focusing on what they want to create? Imagine a world like that. Imagine a world where people across the planet, billions of us, understand the power of thought and the power of consciousness and how our thoughts create. We stop thinking about what's going wrong and we start thinking about what we want and what we can create. Amazing to think about, isn't it? Amazing to think about. Yeah, it's an amazing time we're in at the moment, and this chaos that we're seeing, especially in Australia, is about the destruction of the old way of thinking. It's ramping up, more fear, more control, but it is the destruction of an old way as we can envisage a new way of being. And I really believe our Star Nation family are really helping us at the moment. Yeah, I know that. So the disclosure is coming on thick and fast. I was going to say that to Kevin, actually, that all this disclosure on our mainstream TV, our main channel here, Channel 7, aired recently an hour-and-a-half documentary which had disclosure in it. Not full disclosure, but a lot of disclosure. Netflix has a series. Showtime's bringing out a series. All the mainstreaming platforms are bringing out these UFO disclosure series. They're not so much talking about the power of consciousness, but they're awakening the sleeping minds to the reality of life in the cosmos that is interacting with planet Earth, and how it has been, and all these documentaries showcase how it has been suppressed by our governments. All of them say that. So, on the documentary that was on our mainstream television, it's on YouTube, you can watch it. It's 7 News, I think, is the channel that's airing. It's called UFO something or other. I'll put the link in the description. Ross Coulter is the journalist that is speaking. He speaks to many people about how the cover-up has happened of how governments have known about UFOs forever, about not just UFOs, but ET interacting with Earth, and they've covered it up. But he also talks about the collective hypnosis, the collective conditioning, how we were conditioned to believe that if you think about aliens or UFOs, that you're crazy. And he speaks about that openly in this documentary, which amazed me, really, that it was on mainstream television, to talk about how, because he's a reporter, and how the media was a big part of hypnotizing and deluding humanity to think, if you think about aliens or ETs, you're crazy, you'll be carted off to a mental asylum. This was a rollout, a purposeful rollout, so that we didn't think about it. Amazing what's happening in our world. Just incredible, just incredible. Yeah, all right. It's been a long show, so I'm not going to talk too much more. I've got a lot to say. I'm going to do some separate videos about consciousness and raising our vibe and what ascension and expanding consciousness is all about, but I'll do those in another talk. Thanks for tuning in and listening and watching, and please remember to subscribe and share the shows with your friends, and send me your feedback and your comments. Why I ask people to subscribe and press the bell button and do the comments is that the more people that do that, the more YouTube actually shares the shows with other people, and so we can get the word out and spread the consciousness, spread the message, spread the love. Thanks again for listening and watching. Join our inner sanctum if you want to have these conversations on a weekly basis with myself and other people. Talk about how we create our reality, deliberate creation, and we go everywhere. We talk about everything in the inner sanctum. I'm on every week, and once a month I invite a guest teacher. And remember to check out the book Awakened by Death if you haven't already. Love you big time. Bye for now.